There it is.
Sorry, everybody. We're experiencing some technical difficulties that we haven't seen before. Excited to actually be on here today. Get to put my face out there. I wanted to start by introducing everybody. Of course, we have on the call BJ Lee, Patrick Howard, my dad Cecil Bullard, and myself. Here to answer your questions. This is a show. We want to see your guys' questions, cover some topics that have been like in our Facebook group and brought up within the social media channels. The main discussion for today is going to be about advertising and attracting good employees, the interview process, and then training them as soon as they get hired. So to start off, I want to introduce the question. What is your approach to attracting employees? What are you guys looking for? And I think I want to start with BJ on this one.
Figures.
Of course.
No, I'd say the approach is, I think we want to be the model. I think we want to be the best in the industry. We want to show that. We want to project that out there, right? For potential employees, when they're looking for a place to go. If we project that image that we are the best, then it's obviously going to help, the qualified people that we're looking for to come after us. In my business, I kept that image all the time. I had good qualified people working for me, but we had real good benefits, and we took care of our people. That were paid well, and we were profitable, so we could pay them well. So I would say that we want to have the best reputation out there, so we can attract the best reputation in the people that we're looking for.
So when you're what do you mean by attract? So in the advertisements that you're putting out there for say techs or service advisors, what are some of the verbiage that you would use?
Well, some of the verbiage I would use is, here's what we have to offer, right? And I would have a list of things. So what is it that you're looking for, right? And what is it that we have to offer them? So it's twofold. You want to put out there a list of things that we can provide to them if they're qualified to work for us. And for you to be qualified for us, we're going to have that list of items that we want them to show that they have, to where we can get that mutual agreement and get an interview process started with them, right?
Yeah, get them in, get them
mm-hmm.
interested. Patrick, what's some of the things like? So take for instance the group. I know that Tatsu is doing some kind of like guerrilla tactics to get out there and get exposure. What's something that could set you apart from other shops that are advertising for employees?
Well, I think the key is, at least for me, we just went through a remodel. We want our image to match our product, right? Everything has to work together. So that was important for me to get that done, so that potential new employees that I may hire in the future will see that. Not only that, but we want to have a good benefits package. We want to have a clean, spacious work environment. When I interview guys, and I've interviewed quite a few, I like to let them go talk to the other employees to find out what kind of place this is. One of my guys the other day, came up to me and told me this is the best job he's ever had. He's never had, worked at a shop like this. And when hiring, for me, the potential employees, attitude is almost as important as their skill level, because they've got to fit with the team and the culture that we've created.
Yeah. What was the other question here? So one thing I wanted to take into account, so getting out there and getting exposure to potential applicants, is there ways that you can kind of mitigate the shortage that we're experiencing? Like where in your distribution channels, where would you be putting those applications out there? How do you get more exposure?
I think you got to go backwards about 5 steps. And I think, one of the most important things is, have you created the environment that is going to attract and make a high-performing employee satisfied and happy and able to achieve success in your business? When you think about, I'm going to go advertise for somebody, in the sense of sending an ad out, if it doesn't attract the right person, why do it? If you don't have what it takes, I mean, you can attract people. Hey, come on in. We'll give you $10,000, to come in and work for us. They're going to come in and then they're going to not like the place because it's not clean or it's not organized. They don't have the tools they want, or they don't see themselves as being successful there, which I think is probably one of the most important pieces. Is how do you create an environment where the employee can see themselves being successful within your business? We got a lot of guys out there that are available that are switching jobs because they're not busy enough at the shop they're at. They don't see themselves as being successful there. So I think before you even run an ad, I mean, there's a million places to run an ad. There's lots of things to do there. But before you do that, you better create a really good environment in your business for that person so that they can see themselves being successful within your company. And then you better decide who you want, what your culture is, because if you bring the wrong person into your culture, it's going to screw your culture up. And you may lose some really good people, or they won't fit in. It was interesting in talking, I don't know, maybe it was even this morning, we're teaching a class kind of on this stuff. The guy said, one of the shop owners said he's got a lot of older employees. And so if he brings a young guy in, a millennial, a 28-year-old or whatever into his business, the guy doesn't seem to fit because he doesn't have the same commonalities with the rest of the employees within the business. I imagine that also probably is part of the struggle. Do I fit in here? It seems like you become kind of a community or a family in your business. A lot of the small businesses, it's almost that way. And you better determine, what you want. When I grew up, my family life was fairly crazy, actually. And when I decided I was going to have my own home, I decided I wanted a home that was peaceful, quiet, no screaming, yelling, no hitting. Now, we haven't always achieved that in our house. But I can tell you that our home is 99% screaming, yelling, and hitting free. So most of the time we hit the mark. I think the same thing necessarily goes true in your business, that you determine what you want for a company. And then I think you better think also about having all high-performing employees. In talking to Bill the other day, interesting study, they took chickens, and they took the highest producing, the biggest chickens, and they took 12 of them and put them in one group, and they put the rest of the chickens in another group. And in 3 weeks, the group that had the 12 highest performing chickens only had 3 chickens left. The others had been pecked to death by the other chickens in the group. And when you have all high performing people, all demanding people in your company, they have a tendency to peck each other to death. And especially at that point, you need to have some management in place. I think it's a kind of almost a great thing to think about, right? Are we pecking our? You go into a company and you ask you ask the employees to say, hey, well, why is this place not working well? And you get this, right? It's everybody but me. You better decide what you want, and you better decide who fits in that first before you ever think about advertising out there, because then you're just wasting your time. You got Patrick, not our Patrick today online, but Patrick McHugh in Virginia. He's got a great shop. He's got people waiting in line to come to work for him. And I think because it's clean and it's neat, that's a small piece of it. But I think more importantly, the atmosphere, the environment is a successful environment where, if I could choose a place to work, I might want to work there because then I could see myself being successful, right? And kind of winning the game. So first, better decide who you want to be before you ever run an ad.
I would say at this point then, so once you do identify who your target employees would be, what's the vetting criteria? So who are the candidates that you look and say, okay, now I want to invest the time in doing either a phone interview or an in-person interview where you bring them in? BJ.
Well, I think the vetting process for me would be a few different things, right? I mean, you're going to want to do a background check.
Yeah.
Maybe some third-party screening, drug tests. I think I would screen their social media to find out what type of image they have out there. You want to be careful how you're doing that stuff because you don't want to create issues behind that and discrimination, stuff like that. But that would be a way. Also, phone verify the references, check job histories, that kind of stuff, and check for their honesty as you're asking questions, as you're looking at things, making your notes as to what they've said, what statements they've made. So when you're doing the vetting process, you're not finding conflicting stories, right? So that's a few things that you might want to do to vet your people.
Okay. What about you, Patrick?
Well, I think BJ nailed it. I mean, there's a lot of things. For me, I can train a guy up. The big thing is, and Cecil touched on this too, is getting the right people that fit your culture. But backing up even further, if you're a shop that doesn't have culture or your culture's broken, that's where we get the revolving door of technicians. Cecil made a great point. If I can't see, when I was teching, if I couldn't see myself being successful at this shop, I didn't want to work there. If the shop was dirty or crowded, I had serious reservations about going to work there. So now that I'm an owner, I really culture's number one for me. Creating an atmosphere where everybody can win. Getting everybody invested in what we're doing. Invested in who we are, and that has to be the primary focus of the shops. You got to figure out who you are first. Who do you want to be, and then hire your people accordingly. Cecil made a great point. When you have the right culture and you have a good business where people can win and be successful, you don't have to be the busiest shop around. But if you have all those other things, people can see themselves working there, and word will get out. Eventually you'll have a line like Patrick does, around the corner of techs wanting to work there. I interviewed a guy with Tatsu the other day, young kid, nice kid, and everybody asked the vetting questions about how he would fit into the culture. So I took the tact of asking some technical questions. So there has to be a balance. They've got to have the technical knowledge, but they've also got to fit the culture we've created in our business.
Okay. So Hans Jorgensen and Seth Orson, they both kind of asked about DISC assessments and Burke testing. Is that, Dad, you want to take it up?
I think they're essential for anyone that is going to play a sales or a management or leadership role in the business, or that might in the future play a sales or leadership role. And depending on which test you're running, there are some different things that become really important. When you have someone that has very low trust and a high need for recognition at the same time, that's not someone I'll hire. And the other thing is, I'm a D personality, according to DISC testing. The C's make me a bit crazy. So at the very least, you want to know who your people are, and you want to know what the tendencies are going to be, so that you're able to fit them in the right places and the right pieces. We're a small business. I need a tech who's going to be a tech who's going to pump out 50 hours worth of quality work. But I also want someone that's going to get along with other people, that's going to be happy to be here. Years ago, I had an injury. It was life-changing. And at the time, I decided I wasn't going to work with miserable people anymore, unhappy, miserable people. I want to know if you're going to be happy, too, if you're going to come into my place and enjoy and have some fun, because that's important to us. So I think, I'll give you even one more. Before you get to the personality test, I'm going to do a basic math, English, handwriting, typing test with you, because I want to know if you can communicate. One of the biggest problems we have with people is their lack of good quality communication in the shop. You can't even get your culture right if you can't talk about it. So I'm gonna run one of those kind of tests also. But yes, I haven't tested everybody in the shop. I mean, I have in certain shops, but certainly anyone that would be in management, maybe leadership, or even in sales, I better figure out who they are at the very least, so that I know how to deal with them.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'm going to take a minute here before we go into the next segment. What do you guys think we should cover in our next episode? It's going to be on the 21st of June. Ask us questions. Submit to questions at ifrabe.com. Let us know some topics you would like to see us cover. For a lot of our services, our education is online. We have a wonderful LMS that has a lot of our courses. In fact, even the one that we're filming today will be produced and put online. That includes testing.
What does LMS stand for?
Learning management system. So you can go on and take a course rather than having to go out, and you can take it on your cell phone if you wanted to. It includes videos, pictures, workbooks, all of that good stuff.
Cool.
So moving on to our second topic, now we would go into the interview process. So once you've actually vetted these guys, you've got them in, what's the first thing you do when you've got somebody?
First of all, you need to have a multi-part interview. Many of the people that are going to answer your ad are going to not be even qualified to really come in for an interview, but you got to figure that out. I was in Oklahoma for one of my clients interviewing, and I got there that day. We knew we were going to interview, and he said, I said, okay, who are we interviewing? He said, well, we had 14 applicants, but nobody was qualified. I think he over-picked out people because we didn't have anybody. I actually went back through it. I found 3. We interviewed 3. We actually hired one person out of the group. If you're not interviewing, you're not hiring. But I would tell you, when you decide who you want, to clarify that and write a list of the qualities. Those would include skills and attributes. Attributes being happy, honest. Skills being I can fix cars. I've had 10 years of experience fixing cars. We always ask certain questions on the phone. So send me a resume. We blinded that. So it wasn't at Larry's Auto Works. It was send me a resume at autojobs.com or something. Once they sent a resume, we contacted them with 4 or 5 phone questions. I mean, if you ask them what they valued their tools at, and they said $1,000, and you're looking for a guy that's got 8 years experience, you got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
If he says $100,000, now we're talking. That's somebody that's invested in themselves and their tools, etc. So you do your first interview on the phone to determine if they could come in and speak with the man. When they come in, then you do an interview that is about your culture. So it's a cultural interview. Hey, here's what we do here. Here's how exciting it is. Here's the opportunity. Can you see yourself working here? And then if you really like the guy or gal, now you do a technical interview. That is, we've got a 2013 Ford truck in here. It's not shifting properly. There are no codes. What do you do about that? And and you look for process, how they follow process. So I'm going to do a multi-part interview, and then last I got a fourth interview, and that's going to be the staff, that the people that this person's going to work with, or a couple of them that are going to interview them to see if they fit in our culture, if they'll be a good fit. I always have my staff interview first, and if they say no, I won't hire the guy or gal. If the staff says no, they're not going to be a good fit, we won't be able to work with this person.
Is it just a no, or do you need to have them give reasons as to why?
Oh, I think you're always looking for the reasons. I mean, if it's sometimes you'll look at a really high performing employee coming in, and they may the people you have might feel threatened, and obviously that's
what I'm kind of leading to.
That can be a mess, because here's a guy that could really make the. For instance, Kent interviewed for our for the last position, and you're like, you got an older guy that's got lots of skills and lots of experience, then you got another guy not as much experience, not as much skills, and then a younger person like you, Kent, you're like, I don't know if I want to hire this guy, they might be hard to manage. Well, yeah, a good guy is going to be hard to manage, and you better figure that out. But you'd rather have someone that's a little difficult to manage but is manageable than somebody that you don't have to manage at all, right? So you're looking for that person that's going to challenge the other people around them, including you. I always say that you want to hire people that are better than you, if at all possible, right?
Yeah. So I guess let's move it to Patrick. One question I want to ask is, where do people usually fail when they do interviews?
Where do they usually fail?
Yeah.
Well, if you're asking the right questions on the phone, you usually get the right people in. I've seen some strange things interviewing. I can't pinpoint one specific area where I see them fail, but if I had to pick one, I would say they usually fail on the technical. A lot of guys saying they have X amount of years experience and they've worked at all these shops. When I start asking technical questions, they falter. That's usually where I catch liars.
Can I let me jump in here, because I think if I interpret the question properly, it's the interviewer that fails. And how that's
kind of what I was asking. How do the interview?
Right. So let me give you an example of a perfect failure. I'm going to interview BJ. He's going to be my guy here. Hey, BJ, we really like productivity here. Our guys, they're 50-hour guys, 50 hours a week, and man, they know how to put the work out, high quality 50-hour week. Now, BJ, how many hours do you put out?
I'm pretty comfortable around 35 hours.
Yeah,
because I like to do really, but my work is really, really good, and I really double and triple check my work. So
yeah, interviewers fail a lot because of the way they ask questions. They give the person the answer to the question, and then they ask the question. You don't want to, you don't want to go into an interview unprepared. So you want to have some questions that you can ask. You want to have a list of things, and you're really kind of looking for side stuff. Sometimes you ask a question just really to distract them from the next question. And I think interviewers that are not prepared and that give the answers to the question are the ones that fail. You're always going to hear what the guy, oh, he's such a great interview. Well, yeah, you told him exactly what to tell you. Of course, he was a great interview. Either that or he was stupid and he said 35 hours and you're going to terminate that. He's out. So you got to be careful.
I think what you're saying there obviously is right. Interviewing too quickly, just rushing them through an interview process and not doing that multi-part interview, right? I mean, we have to spend the time with them and go through the process. If we just go strictly by gut in a 10-minute interview, more than likely you're going to churn people, right?
I always had a rule that in one interview I wouldn't hire. Now I've broken that rule more than once. I broke that rule when I hired BJ, but But I can tell you that probably 90% of the time, I don't hire on a first interview. I always wait, bring them back, have them talk to somebody else. We had a guy come in I loved. I thought he was fantastic, and I'm sending him to the group interview, and Phil, our guy, Phil was like super anal about all this stuff, and after the interview, Phil comes in my office, and I'm like, "Oh, we hiring this guy?" And Phil's like, "Are you stupid? Did you miss something, Cecil?" And I was like, "Excuse me, what?" He says, "Did you notice this guy had a felony?" And I was like, "No, I didn't notice." And I said, "Well, what was the felony?" And it was child molesting twice, two felonies. So I missed it completely. The guy was good. The presentation was good. Phil picked up on the pieces for me. So also having multiple interviews can be good, because you might fool me because, I'm giving the vibe, but maybe you don't fool Phil or you don't fool BJ. So yeah, taking some time with the person, at least probably 24 hours before you make any real decision, and having at least a couple of interviews with the person is a good idea.
Yeah, I think we interviewed Kurt like 4 times, and BJ, you helped me interview on one of those when you were in here.
Right. Well, just to clarify, Cecil, you're a lot smarter than you were 35 years ago when you hired me.
A lot older too.
So, Patrick, you want to say something?
No, I had a parts guy walk in. I told him, get out.
Get out.
Get out.
I was going to say, so say you've got 2 candidates, and they're both equally qualified. They're both equally fit culturally. How do you toss the coin? And I want to throw this question at BJ, because
the better looking one.
Everybody was thinking it.
I don't know. I mean, if you've got 2 that are identical, basically, you've got to find some deciding factor there, right? But I think it's not going to come to that, because if you do the multi-part interview, I think you're going to come to a conclusion much easier. I think when you're doing it yourself and you've got 2 people and they're pretty much qualified, you're to think, I'm not sure. That's why it's always nice to have the multi-part. So for me, I would go, if I was doing it myself, I would obviously go by my gut and by, the way that person carried themselves,
The esoteric things, the things that are hard to put your finger on, are where this comes into play. So in our shops, we had he seemed honest to me, and 1 through 10, and he seemed energetic, 1 through 10. And it's hard to put your finger on that, but I think when you get done with the interview, when you sit down and you say, "Wow, that guy seemed really honest," he gets a 9 on that. Those are the things that will set someone else apart. So you want to set aside some of those, hard to put your finger things on, but you still make a judgment. You create a scale. I think we had like 15 questions that had to do with that kind of stuff. And he was on time. Click. Yeah, he gets a 10 for that. Or, his handwriting is better. He types more. He types faster. There are real things that you can look at in their job skills, but then there's these other things like honesty, et cetera, kind of come to play. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Patrick.
I think if I had a situation like that, I would probably take the person out for lunch or dinner, each of them, and see interpersonally, try to get put them at ease and just kind of have a conversation with them and see which one kind of fit better. There's lots of people that put on their best face for interviews, but you put them at ease and just kind of see how they act in a non-work type setting, and that might give you a better feel for who might be the right one too.
There's also another piece of that. I always, before I made a job offer to someone, at least in an important position, I wanted to go out to dinner with them and their significant other, because when you get them around their spouse, their mate, their significant other, and see how they treat each other and how they talk to each other, it's going to give you a good it's going to give you a good sense of, what's going to happen later. I mean, I tell you the truth, I've met a couple of guys, and once I met their wives, I wouldn't hire them because I knew the kind of pressure that would be going on at home, and that actually affects work. And I've lost lots of employees because of what was going on at home, the divorce, the alcoholism, the things that are created by that bad relationship. If he can't show his wife respect, it's unlikely he's going to show his boss respect. So
think of what he's doing to clients and customers.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, some people are just great interviewers, and they can put on a great act for that hour or 3 hours of time that you're going to have conversations with them. And then you hire them, and 2 or 3 weeks later, you're starting to figure out it's just not the guy.
Yeah.
So what are some of those things that you can do to protect yourself just in case? I mean, I know what we do, but Patrick, what would you do to protect yourself against hiring a kind of a bad apple who interviewed well?
I don't understand exactly what you're asking.
So say they did a great interview. They were the guy, and you get them started in your company and they're working, but they're not anything like they interviewed as.
Well, we have a 90-day probation period. That's right off the top, because you don't know, like Cecil said, a lot of people are good interviewers, and you don't know until they're actually there and working. And sometimes it takes, a month before they start feeling comfortable enough to really act themselves. So, we make it clear there's a 90-day probation period, because if you can't keep a bad apple, somebody's going to poison the well.
Yeah. What do you think, BJ?
Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
and fire fast. Take them out and shoot them if you have to. The other thing I think that becomes really important in thinking about that is that I have to be looking for employees always.
Yep.
I think it's kind of like marketing. He'll spend a bunch of money on marketing, and his shop's over full today, so he'll quit the marketing. And then the problem is that 3 weeks from now they won't have any work. They won't have any marketing to supplement it. It's the same with finding people. You're constantly interviewing. You're constantly talking to technicians. You're putting yourself in positions and places where you can talk to technicians and potential service advisors. You got your eyes open all the time, and you run an ad. How often do you run an ad? At least twice a month. You're running something. If you don't interview, you can't hire. If you don't have people in a pipeline, when you need somebody, it's going to be 3 months before you can fill your pipeline.
Yep.
You don't want to do that.
All right. I think this is a good spot to transition. Patrick, I know you've got our spotlight for this show.
Yeah. Mark Norris over at Bavarian Workshop. Yeah. He is doing a fantastic job. He had some employee issues, lost 2 good guys, yet he's still on track to reach his goal of $1.2 million this year. Last time I was out there, his numbers were fantastic.
Awesome.
Hitting all of his marks. Mark, big shout out to you, doing a fantastic job with some marks against him, having lost 2 techs this year, and he's still on track. So he's doing a great job. Good job, Mark.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I also want to let everybody know one of our upcoming classes is an advanced marketing course in Stamford, Connecticut. I think that's one of the WorldPack classes we're doing July 7th and 8th. You guys can check out information on our website at ifrabe.com. And also check out some of our other services. Again, if you guys have any questions, put them down in the comments below. We'll try and fit them in and answer them as we go along. Our next topic is going to be how do we integrate new employees? So say you've hired somebody, right? BJ, what's the first thing you do?
I lost part of that.
Once they're hired, what's the first thing you do? How do you integrate new employees?
Well, once you've hired someone, you're going to want to train them on your process and procedures, right? You want to get their buy-in, set their goals, set the expectations. That's some of the first things that I would do. Make sure that they know exactly what their function is, exactly what's going to be expected of them, what their goals are, and so forth, and train them on that stuff. That's very important that we get that done. A lot of people don't do anything. They just put the pen in their hand or put the wrench in their hand and tell them go to work, and then they don't have none of that stuff in place.
How do you get them invested? So you mentioned getting them invested in the vision. How do you do that?
Well, I think part of that, you're doing that during the interview process. You want to already start to get them vetted and get them invested in your company and stuff. And obviously you're doing that every day that you're in business. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you're doing that stuff, right? Because you want to be able to track the right people. So when you're hopefully got the right people coming in, you've been slowly building this value and building that buy-in for them naturally, right? Make sense?
Dad, you look like you're itching to.
I'm always itching.
He's pecking. He's pecking.
Two things. KoolAid. You make them drink the KoolAid. So you get the jar out, you get the glass, you pour it, and you say, "Here's some KoolAid. Drink it." If you did the right interview when you did your second interview, which is about your company and your culture, you've already started to get them drinking the KoolAid. The second thing, and I think really, really important, is having a mentoring program. You come into our company, you're going to have people that you work with that are going to work with you. They're going to show you our processes. They're going to sign you off on the sign-off sheets. We want to know that you can do a brake job before we let you do a brake job. We want to know that you know how to torque lug nuts before we, let that brake job go out the door. And I want someone looking over your shoulder who is one of my better employees that understands our systems and our processes. One of the reasons that shops struggle is by having a poor inspection system. So they got a lot of cars coming in, but they're not able to find the work or present the work or sell the work. Well, we want to know that you know how to not only inspect the car, but how to fill the paperwork out correctly so that the service advisor can then go do his job or her job. So having a good mentoring program with sign-off sheets, lists of what you want these people to learn, where their mentor and the manager and the new employee can sign off on things. I think also having regular communication in your business, having that weekly meeting that they get involved in and they get to see that you communicate with your employees, bringing them in your office and saying, "Hey, how's it going? What do you think? And are you struggling with anything? What can we help you with?" All of those things are, I think, really important to make someone feel good about being here and that they can be successful. I'll add one last thing and then I'll turn it over. But I think in order to have a successful employee, whether they're new or whether they're old, they've been there a long time, is that when they have a problem, that there's a place that they can talk about it. I don't have the tools I need. I'm not happy with the way the parts are going, something. If I have regular communication in my business, because that's how I set my business up, then and they can see that the other employees are involved and invested in the company. I think that helps them also be involved and invested. So have the right culture with the people you have. Make sure they've drank the KoolAid first before you bring somebody else in. If you come into a group of 10 other people that do it this way and are excited about the company, most likely that the next employee that comes in is going to be excited about the company and do it this way also.
So you kind of talked about a mentorship program that you've put in place. Taking one of your guys who's been around for a while, who do you choose and what would that look like? Or what should that look like?
I think sometimes we make a mistake in that we choose our most apt or best technician to mentor the new technician that comes in. That's not necessarily the right choice. I mean, if I have, high tech, it's all about me. I produce 16 hours a week, get out of my way tech in the Bay. And then I put him with my junior guy, he's going to scare my junior guy off. It's not going to work. If you mentor employees on a regular basis, and you allow your best people, your people that do the job the best, your people that are, if you cut them, they would bleed the KoolAid. Those are the kind of people that I'm kind of looking for more as mentors. I also want them to be able to do the job, understand how we do the process, but that's fairly simple, I think. Make sure that and then the other thing is, don't let the mentor be completely and totally in charge. The manager has to sit down with the mentor and the mentored weekly and discuss what's going on, and make sure that they're both able to set your people up for success as much as you can, and then they're most likely to be successful. I see Patrick shaking his head. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, that's what I do. I actually rotate guys working with the new guys. I'll have, one of my guys working with them for a day or so, just kind of walking them through our processes, how we do the inspections. I'll even go out there and, ask some pointed questions when we have I feel good that they know how to do brakes. We give them, a water pump job or whatever. Have you done this before? Walk me through your process. Okay. Miguel, you go ahead and work with him today. And, I rotate the guys just so everybody gets a chance to bond with them and get to know how they work, just so everybody's involved.
So I'm going to pull a question from the comments. Gary Olson, and this one I'm going to give to you, BJ. Gary Olson said, how do you actively recruit without having an open position?
You just recruit. I mean, you're constantly, it's just having an ad out there constantly. We're always hiring. It's like having an ad on your website, right? Opportunities. We're always looking for fantastic people, for the best people, right? You just never know when something is going to change. One of your best people could get hit by a bus on the way to work. I hate to see that happen, but it happens, right? Somebody can walk in, things change in their lives. I just think you need to always just be prepared for it and be looking. Whether you need one today or you need one 6 months or a year from now, the process is the same. You need to continually be looking.
I got a perfect example. I got a call this morning. And I got a call about a week ago from two shop owners, both looking for techs. They got blindsided. Their lead techs left just out of the blue. And neither one of them were actively looking for people. And now they're in a panic trying to scramble and find somebody, Mm-hmm. I know I have an ad out there monthly. I don't do it bi-monthly, but I keep an ad out there every month and continually interview people just so I have a stack of phone numbers I can call.
Just in case.
Just in case. That's right.
Well, you kind of have this mentality. I kind of have the weakest link mentality. If I've been doing this a long time, like BJ said, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. I've got guys that all of a sudden get a DUI and now they can't drive cars. And how do you have a tech that can't drive cars? And so I'm always looking for someone that's better than what we have. I don't think that employees should have to worry about their position if they're doing a good job. But if you're not doing the job that I absolutely need you to do, which is hit the targets and the goals, then and somebody else comes along that could be far better, I might make the shift. It seems heartless, but frankly, I just know what happens. I know that, wow, everything's great today. And then tomorrow, the guy comes in and says, hey, I'm giving you my notice. The guy offered me $2 more an hour. And, okay, see ya. Who's next? Mm-hmm. You want those, one thing that Patrick's done, again, not our Patrick online today, but he's got art shows that he does monthly by local artists in his building, and he invites guys. He invites techs out and service advisors, potential techs and service advisors out to lunch. I don't know exactly if it's once a week or once a month, but he's going to lunch with a tech, knowing, hey, I don't have a job for you, but you seem like a great guy. I'd like to take you to lunch, get to know you a little bit. And of course, he's happy. He loves his shop. He's going to talk good about his shop. And now someone else knows what might be there. It's just going to create this wheel that's just going to keep spinning faster and faster and faster if you keep it up. I've got a client that does Facebook poaching. They look at people in certain positions on Facebook, and then they send them an email or a message through Facebook. Hey, I don't know if you're looking for a job, but you look like you'd be a great tech. I'd love to interview you, even though I'm not hiring right now. Or maybe I am hiring right now. You need to create these methodologies that are going to get you resumes sitting on your desk right now, so that if next week something changes, I have a place to go without having to start the whole thing from the beginning.
Yeah. At this point, let's get into final thoughts, because we're getting to that time. Patrick, final thoughts.
Well, hiring in this climate is difficult, to say the least. I would encourage everybody out there not to settle for employees, but be proactive and be creative. My friend Tatsu has been very creative in some of his ways of generating leads for technicians.
That guerrilla.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to reach people, and I think it's important that if we're continually interviewing people, technicians flock with technicians, right? Maybe he's not looking for a job today, but his buddy may be. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to one of my techs and said, hey, this guy over here is looking for a job. Do you know anybody? Because technicians hang out with technicians. So, but be diligent, be proactive, be continually searching and seeking out talent, because they're out there.
CJ?
I would say treat everybody the same. Show no favorites. Do what you say you're going to do. Praise them when they need praising. Hold them accountable when they need to be held accountable. And one thing I would say also is that people fall short. Owners and managers fall short on following through on their reviews with their people. I think it's important that we, let them know how they're doing or not doing, so that we can monitor that stuff and get them the training they needed along the way. So we don't, set them up for failure.
Okay. Dad?
So it sounds like BJ is kind of saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but take great care of the employees you have and make sure they're able to be successful. And then you don't have to do as much finding new people kind of thing. I want to cover one or two things before I'm done here. So one is, think about advertising yourself differently than you've advertised in the past. There's some great books on telling your story. Starts with Why, Simon Sinek. Tell your story in your ad. Instead of saying, here's what we have, and if you want good pay and you want a good place, instead say something like, imagine yourself a year from now working in a business where you're really appreciated. You get to go home at 5:30 and enjoy your family. You don't have to worry about work. You're able to be successful. Your environment is this, and tell the story in your ad of someone who's actually successful, who really loves what they're doing in a company that they love what they're doing, instead of just putting the list out. I hate the list, and I'll wrap up with this. If you're not successful today at what you're doing, and you're doing everything you think you know how to do something else. Add something to the list. It's funny to me, it's like, oh, you can't hire anybody. You're like, okay, where have you run an ad? Well, Craigslist doesn't work. Well, that's not true. I know a lot of people that have gotten good employees off Craigslist. Instead of running an ad for a service advisor, run an ad for a management trainee, someone that's going to be trained to be management, because service advisors are managers. Rethink the way that you're doing things. We've got guys that are going to Europe and advertising in Europe for technicians, or advertising in other states. I mean, right now California is being deserted right and left. Advertising California for for techs. There are wonderful places that you can advertise and bring good people in. And then, of course, hire someone that knows how to help you with this. Again, if it's not us, that's fine. But read, study, get the training that you need. Set yourself up for success, and then take great care of the employees you have.
Awesome. So at this point, we're going to wrap up the show. We really appreciate everybody. It was great to answer some questions, and sorry about our technical issues. We were having a little bit of a problem with the cameras getting on. Our next show is going to be in 2 weeks. They're going to be the first and third Thursday of every month. So the next one's June 21st, and it's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. They're going to be at 10 a.m. every day. Hopefully not 5 minutes late today. If you guys want to submit questions, you can just email us at questions@iparade.com or through Facebook or in any way you want to reach us. And if you guys think there's topics that you want us to cover, let us know as well. Anyway, thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks for having us. Yep. Have a good day, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.